Greetings, YouTubians, and welcome back to Wayne Sharp World, where today we are going to be taking a look at one very impressive EDC knife that will really have you rethinking what exactly great value is in a knife. And this knife happens to be none other than the Beg Knives Astio. Now, before I go any further into this review, I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in today. If you like what you see, please do me a huge favor, hit that subscribe button, follow along, and I will continue to bring you the content. Now let's take a look at some overall specs on this knife right here. We have an overall length coming in at 8.25 inches with a blade length coming in at 3.5 inches and a blade thickness at 140 thousandths. Blade material on this guy is D2, but it is actually a very properly heat-treated D2. You can expect this to come in around the 62 HRC mark, which is a lot better than a lot of other knives with D2. We have a Tanto style blade with a phenomenal grind we will talk about here in just a second. A hollow grind indeed, actually a compound grind. A handle length coming in at 4.75 inches and a handle thickness at 530 thousandths. Handle material on this guy for the most part is G10, but we do have some stainless steel right down here. We have a user of a right hand only tip up carry, a weight coming in at a pretty reasonable, pretty much okay, 4.85 ounces. Real close to that benchmark you kind of go for when you're talking about the overall length of a knife and the overall weight. Designed by Jared Van Otterloo and a price of 120 bucks. Now, some of you might be saying, yeah, G10, D2, 120 bucks, pass. No, not yet. Hear me out here, because this is a very, very impressive, very satisfying offering for 120 bucks with everything you get. Let me tell you. But before I get into that, let's take a look at some size comparisons here and see just what we got. I've got some pretty good knives put on the table to compare it with. Let's get a couple budgets out here. We have the Civivi Cogent, as well as the Kizer Escort. As you can see, it is slightly longer than both the Escort and the Cogent, but these next two knives line up just about perfectly with it, and those are the Spyderco Shaman, which is almost an identical match in overall length, as well as the Civivi Conspirator. So as you can see, it is a pretty good sized knife. And along with that good size is one very, very impressive blade. This blade is a thing of beauty from an aesthetic standpoint to an actual quality and grind standpoint. This is just one wickedly awesome blade shape, ground to perfection. And I really mean that. And let me get into the details of why I mean that. We'll start off with the sharpening choil. It has a great little sharpening choil down there, but it really comes down to this compound grind. And I really, really like what they did here, because they took the hollow grind. As you can see, this right here is the hollow ground portion. You can see the right up here at the very end of the tip, it gets into a flat grind, but all of this is a hollow grind. And this little area down here, right, kind of where the point is, this right here is what a laser beam of steel looks like, because you are looking at a behind the edge thickness here. See if I can get this into, don't think I can get it quite into focus, but we are looking at about 12 thousandths behind the edge right down here at this point, and it stays really thin and really slicey all back here, going up to where right about halfway up the belly is where you start to really feel the thickness. But even halfway up the belly, I mean, we're still talking 17, 18, 19 thousandths, then you get up to 20 thousandths and a little more as you get to the tip, because the tip is rather thick. And what I love about this is it kept this blade to be mostly slicey for the most part. You have this whole little area down here that is razor thin, that is going to give you a lot of really good work and stay slicey up here. A lot of Tantos, the hollow grind usually stops at the point of the, kind of like the secondary tip, you call it, on a Tanto. Usually the hollow grind stops here and it's flat all the way up. What they did was they kept that hollow deep to the end of the blade, and they didn't really go with the flat grind until the very end. So what you're left with is basically a blade that is like, God, I would say like 80% all sliciness, and up at the top here you still have a real hoss of a tip that can take a lot of the heavier work, but still has a nice edge up here too. This is still an edge that can cut damn near anything, but you have that strength and stability behind the tip to where you can really give this knife some good use. But it really is, it's a slicer first and a brute second. And on top of everything, it is just a thing of beauty from a design standpoint. The execution here in terms of blade shape, in my opinion, is pretty much perfected, especially whether you look in relation to the whole knife or just the blade itself. Just has some really awesome lines. The holes drilled in the fuller, little things like that, they're drilled to perfection. They're not too far up, too far down. They're very much in line and on point, and I love that because there's been a lot of times, especially knives, in this price category. Let me get a cloth here and wipe my oily fingerprints off this beautiful blade so it can look a little better behind the camera. Like I said, everything is just executed very well. There's nothing that I look at that it's an eyesore for me. This little harpoon area is a great spot to land your thumb. Now, even though there's no jimping, I kind of wish there was jimping, but it also doesn't really matter that much because there's so much other good traction on this handle. I don't necessarily need it, especially with the harpoon starting there. It kind of acts as somewhat of a stop. But yeah, some people would want jimping up there. I wouldn't hate to see it, but I'm not really missing it, I guess is probably the best way to put it. I just really love how this blade came out, and I really think that this thing was just executed to basically perfection, even all the way from the harpoon and the swedge on the harpoon that really kind of highlights the top of the blade. It is just an aesthetic thing of beauty. Going into the handle, this is where the real heavy user feel comes into this because the G10 is nice and thick and solid. There's no flex in this handle. Really nice milling. It's nothing like super detailed, but it's just very complimenting milling that just lines that work with the rest of the knife. This is definitely more of an exotic, aggressive, tactical, maybe a little bit of Gothic style design. It's really something that a lot of people, someone said this about another beg knife I was reviewing. They said it looks like a gas station knife. Well, I got news for you. If you think this looks like a gas station knife, you haven't handled a lot of knives. To be quite blunt, you have not, because this looks nothing like a gas station knife. It is a more exotic design, I will give it that. But the quality and detail and the milling, even though it's just G10, it's clean milling. It's good lines. It leads the eye. It's attractive. It looks good. It doesn't look like a gas station knife. It doesn't look cheesy. It's a job very well done. The back spacer here and this grip in general, this reverse grip is where this knife really does, the tactical side of it really does come out, because this is a knife designed for tactical use, and the grip on this back spacer, the jimping of the back spacer here, bites your thumb, and let me tell you, this is secure in hand, and you can tell it was truly designed to be used in the reverse grip when needed. Because it just feels fantastic. The ergos in general are fantastic. We're looking at semi-contoured handles. Again, it's nothing super rounded, but you can see it is basically fully contoured, just in a more mild way. Very smooth finish on the G10. You still have some of that, I kind of call it like a leathery / wood grainy finish on the G10. It's kind of hard to describe, but it looks good. It does look good, and it's a smooth finish. And this side here, where I'm going to call it a subframe lock. I personally feel like it's a subframe lock. Let me know if this is not technically a subframe lock. Everyone has their opinions. I do really feel like this is a subframe lock, though, and I just love the way this thing comes together from an aesthetic standpoint and a design standpoint. But it also, again, it comes back to being something that can be used and used with authority. And it looks, man, it really is. It's an excellent combination of heavy user potential and also just a stunning design with all the right lines. That satin stainless steel looks so good. The milled holes in the handle kind of work with the blade. It's just a thing of beauty. The clip back here, I really like the clip. I like the aesthetics of it. I like the design of it. It's very functional. I love the ballpoint clip. It really works on this piece. The only thing that isn't ideal is the angle that the clip, so when you put this in your pocket, it's obviously going to stop right here. So you're kind of going to have some unused clip, I guess is the best way to say it. Unless you're a lefty and you're carrying it in the front of your pocket, then it'll actually fit perfect at the angle of the clip. But most righties are going to be carrying this, and it's just going to sit, I wouldn't say it sits awkwardly, but it just sits a little high in the pocket. So some people may not love that. You can put it at an angle, but then it's like taking up half your pocket, so it depends. If you don't carry anything else in your pocket, you can do that and probably be okay with it. But from an ergonomic standpoint and a functional standpoint, the clip is really good to go. It actually feels really good, and the curvature has a lot to do with that on why it feels good. So I'm not going to knock it too much. At the end of the day, it still looks really good. It looks great on the knife. It just sits a little higher than some people may want with it, stopping about right here. But other than that, I really don't have any complaints on this clip. Like the fact that they went with black and not satin. I think black worked really, really well for this. And just a very, very nice handle. But what really makes this thing like next level satisfying is the action. It's one of the best pure flippers I've handled in probably all the time I've been reviewing knives, which started in 2020. I have no idea how many flippers I have reviewed, but when it comes to flippers that are $120 or less, this is easily in the top 5. And granted, that's been a lot of knives, easily in the top 5. And this just feels like if I gave you this knife and I said, this is G10 with a M390 blade, you would be okay paying $200 for this. Like, you get it in hand and you feel that, you would be okay with $200. I know D2 really changes things, but again, it's not $200, it's $120. Very, very satisfying flipping action. And this flipper tab, this is kind of a lost art when it comes to designing flippers, because a lot of knives nowadays will have flipper tabs more like the Kojin that are a little more rounded off with really nice jimping. And don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking the Kojin. I love the flipper on the Kojin. But they're going to have more rounded ends and jimping. They've kind of went away from designing flipper tabs like this, but this one here is done perfect to where it's not a hot spot. It doesn't bother your index finger. It's very nice on the finger. And there's a lot of things that contribute into that. One, the fact that it's a wider blade. It's 140 thousandths compared to 120 thousandths. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but if this was a 120 thousandths blade, the area, the contact point would be a little more narrow, which would be a little more of a point. Even though it's not a point, that extra bit of narrowness would definitely be noticed on your index finger when you go to feel it. So the extra width in the blade stock is very nice, and just the perfect amount of chamfering all over this. It's rounded just enough at the point of the flipper as well as the sides. So it's a very, very comfortable flipper tab. And once you break that detent, it's flying out. And it's so, so good, so smooth on the close. Action from deployment to close is butter. I mean, it really is buttery smooth, very, very fidgety for just a flipper, and very satisfying in terms of anyone that gets a knife nowadays, especially if you're a knife nut, guy, girl, I don't care what you are. If you know what a good knife is, you get this in your hand and you flip it. The only complaint someone might have is, well, I don't like D2 steel. Well, I know, I get that. I'm not a big D2 fan either, but everything else about this knife just makes sense for me. There's a lot of things about this knife that I usually look away from. I'm usually not into the more dramatic recurves. Tontos aren't my favorite blade shape. D2's not my favorite steel. But when everything on a knife is executed this well, you can accept some things. You really can. And I truly mean that. And I think that's one of my favorite things about reviewing knives. It's really kind of opened my eyes. Over the past year, I've reviewed some knives that 2 or 3 years ago, I would never want to look at. I'd have thought they were dumb. I'd have thought they weren't for me. I'd have thought yada, yada, yada. But we're getting to a point now to where I really enjoy appreciating knives for what they are. And when I say what they are, I mean, what were they going for and how well was the design executed? Because there's so many times you come across designs that were just shit execution. They didn't do a good job at the final finish or the fit and finish or the action or what was missed. Nothing was missed on this. I mean, nothing was missed. Could they have used more premium materials? Of course, you can always use more premium materials, but the fit and finish is on point. The action's on point. The aesthetics, in my opinion, are knocked out of the park. And they hit on every aspect of what they were going for with this knife. And it was just really impressive. It's really impressive. I am becoming a bigger and bigger fan of what Beg Knives is doing. I hope they can find a middle ground where they have like mid-end materials still at decent prices. Like this knife with slightly upgraded steel at 150, 160 bucks, I think would still be okay with a lot of people. And like I said, personally, for me, I'm okay with this at 120 bucks because it's so well executed and excels in basically every aspect of what I look for in a knife, minus the D2. And again, it's still properly heat treated D2. So even on what some people would consider a miss, they still hit it as well as they could have. So yeah, I'm I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan. And now there's 2 more Begs. Now I've handled 3 of them now. I believe there's 2 more in this lineup that I just got to check out. The Bodega and the Kwaiken. I'm gonna have to get those in hand because this thing here, as you can see, very satisfying action, excellent design, excellent knife in general. Guys, if this design says anything to you, if you think you might like this knife, I can pretty much guarantee you if you think you like it, you will like it once you get it in hand. It's that good. The Beg Knives Astio, guys. Let me know what you think of this. I really hope you enjoyed this one. I rambled for an extra 3 minutes more than I usually do, so I hope that's okay. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and until the next one, I'm out.